When Peter first noticed the strange holes in his thumb, he was shocked. He had no idea what could have caused this or how potentially dangerous this was. But he would soon find out. That same afternoon, he went to the doctor. But when he looked at it, the message was not good for Peter. What this man experienced was both strange and unlikely. The doctor immediately called the police after determining what was wrong. Peter was just left without any explanation. The doctor had done some tests on him, and after seeing the results, he immediately alerted the police and ran out of the room. Peter sat confused. If that's not a sign enough that what you're going through is serious, you might want to think again. Peter was now starting to panic because he now felt how serious this probably was. A doctor usually checks every possible symptom you are experiencing externally first and then internally. Once they receive a diagnosis, they will generate a conclusion as to why you are experiencing such symptoms. On the other hand, doctors aren't quite in control of what to do, especially if it's something unfamiliar. And when he discovered that the doctor had locked the door for him, Peter began to see red. He began to bang against the door with his full weight, trying to force it open. He is practically trapped with no answers. And with a few hits, the door gave way. He was now face to face with the doctors who had locked him up. The doctor was now forced to give Peter an explanation of what he had discovered, and upon hearing it, Peter fell to the ground. One wonders what the doctor discovered before he had to take such actions. But what had the doctor discovered? What were those holes in Peter's fingers? And why did the police have to intervene? Peter didn't notice anything wrong when he woke up. It seemed like any other morning. He got up and shuffled to the kitchen to make his coffee. He didn't even notice anything was wrong while he was making the coffee until he was about to pour it into his cup when he saw it and he was ready to scream. Your average Joe, that was Peter practically, and he didn't even bother to think of anything bad or negative that would happen within the day. The problem is that he noticed something strange during his daily routine. It wasn't something that could immediately grab attention, but it wasn't something you could overlook either. Peter, 40, was a single man. He had dated in the past, but it just never worked out. He hoped it would be different this time. He had spent a lot of time preparing for the date. As you get older, you want to make sure everything in your life follows the chronological order of things, technically the stereotypical way of life. You go to school, graduate, find a job, seek stability, find love, and live happily. Peter was almost at the end of the finish line, but he still missed the last step of his entire life. He had met the woman online and knew it wouldn't be long, but he met her. The morning after his date, Peter discovered something strange was going on with his thumb. It hurt a little, but it wasn't until he looked closely at it that he saw exactly why his thumb hurt, and it started him. What happened to him? Peter didn't expect the transition and progression of the small holes and pain to happen quickly, but it did. Peter's thumb was covered in the small holes. The pain was unbearable, and he could wait no longer for it to heal on its own. He pressed it with his other fingers, and it hurt even more. Something was very wrong, but what? Peter thought a little. Maybe an insect had bitten him or even crawled into him. Maybe it was caught on his thumb at night, but he had never seen an insect do such a thing. Peter searched online and concluded that no insect had done this. It had to be something worse. There are many tools at home he can use to take out these bugs, but tweezers seemed like the next best option. Peter decided that he would try to find out what was in his thumb with tweezers. He went to the bathroom and pulled out his tweezers, but before he could dig into his thumb, he hesitated. Peter didn't like doctors. He knew it wasn't something he could handle on his own. So he jumped up and called the doctor. The doctor's office made a semi-emergency appointment for that same afternoon. They told him that there would be others for him, but that they would see him at the latest at the end of the day. Peter had no idea what was wrong with his thumb when he left for his appointment. He kept thinking as he drove to the doctor's office, but came up with nothing. He went to the doctor's office and sat in his car for a while to think of more answers. Peter really couldn't think of anything else, taking a deep breath to calm his nerves. Once in his office, the doctor got a good look at Peter's thumb, and he was startled. He had never seen anything like it. He would remember if he had. You can't just forget something like that. Furthermore, the doctor had never heard of such a thing in his medical books. The doctor ran tests on Peter, and while they waited for the results, he studied Peter's thumb intensely. The strange thing was that while Peter had felt pain before, he didn't anymore. His entire thumb was completely numb. It didn't even hurt when the doctor pressed it. This was a bad sign. The doctor, who still hadn't found anything useful, posted some pictures of Peter's thumb on a medical forum. He hoped another doctor had seen something like this before. It would be a while before they would get a response. Peter decided he needed some air and went to the toilet. While he was gone, the doctor got a private message from the forum. He eagerly opened it, hoping it was the answer he was looking for, and luckily that was indeed it. But it was also terrible, terrible news, and everything should move quickly from now on. Indeed, another doctor had seen this condition before, and if they don't act soon, it could become a very big problem for everyone, including Peter. After the labs, Peter's doctor waited for the results, which came in almost immediately after reading the message from the forum. This was it. He had the results, and it chilled him to the bone. The other doctor had been right. Peter came back from the bathroom. His thumb didn't look good. The holes began to spread to the rest of his hand. He was really scared now, but he knew he had to show the doctor. There was only one problem. The doctor was not in his office when Peter returned. What was he supposed to do? Peter was just deciding what to do when he heard something happen behind him. The door he had just come through was locked from the outside. He was locked up here. And to make matters worse, he overheard the doctor telling others that he had called the police. What happened? Soon those fears turned into anger. Why didn't anyone talk to him? After a few flights of stairs, the door lock broke and the door swung wide open. The people on the other side started screaming and Peter's doctor stepped back. He needed answers, and someone had to tell him what was going on right now. Peter's doctor ordered everyone else to get out and told Peter to stay. He's not allowed near anyone now. Before his doctor could speak, 3 armed officers entered the building and saw Peter. The doctor pointed to Peter and started shouting, "It's him!" All 3 officers pulled out their pistols and carefully aimed them at Peter, who now felt faint. What the hell was going on? He almost had tears in his eyes, and he begged them all to just tell him what was going on. He almost had tears in his eyes, and he begged them all to just tell him what was going on. When the police saw that the holes in Peter's thumb had taken up almost half of his hand, the police told him to stay. One of the officers calmly explained to Peter that they would tell him everything, but he had to be isolated immediately. Peter agreed to the terms. He was terrified, and no one told him anything. Peter went back to the doctor's office, and the door closed behind him. Peter saw the staff come in with heavy cleaning equipment, and they started cleaning everything: the floors, the walls, the door, you name it. Finally, the doctor came to the door to tell Peter what was wrong. His doctor first apologized for not telling Peter what was wrong. He had been scared. It wasn't every day that a person came in with a horrible flesh-eating virus and had to go through procedures he'd never had to do before. He discussed with Peter what he had done the day before. Peter had gone for a walk and gone on a date that night. Luckily for Peter, the bad date hadn't been the cause of all this. Instead, it was more likely that he had touched an infected plant during his walk. But which? Peter wasn't sure what to say to them. He told police and his doctor the route he had taken, what he had seen that might help. He didn't know what else he could do. Fortunately for Peter, the hospital had the medicines they needed, but he would have to remain in isolation for a while. The police were involved as they needed to talk to Peter about his walk. They also had to make sure no one else would get infected. Peter was safely transported to a better hospital where he could be in isolation and be treated for the virus that was eating away at his hand. Fortunately, the medication stopped the spread of the virus, and within a few days the problem started to reverse. But what about the plant? The agents had kept everyone off the path, and after some searching had found a plant that does not occur in the area. It was tested and found to be the cause of Peter's problem. It was uprooted and carried away. There have been no more cases since then, and within a month, Peter was all better and ready to go on a date again.